Hi, good evening, and thanks for tuning in. My name is Jason Molino, and I'm the Tompkins County Administrator. Thanks for tuning in tonight, and thank you for engaging in this community reimagining public safety process. In other years, we would be engaging in person, but the pandemic has driven many civic engagement processes online, and we're hoping that the community voice forums will continue to help bring voices to the forefront for this process. So I thank you for those that have tuned in tonight, and I also thank you for those that have turned in last week. We appreciate all your participation. And just so you know, we have another public forum tomorrow and then another one December 4th. Officials from the county and the city government are working and working group members are listening to this forum for your input and providing critical and developing information as we start to put together an equitable plan for reimagining public safety in our community. We'll share the timeline for the process in the chat, but we are currently in the information gathering stage. We're continuing to seek community feedback to inform the plan, and we'll be kicking off several groups, focus groups in this upcoming month, and we're accepting survey responses online. We're also going to be doing interviews over the phone, and we also have email or mail or Dropbox location at the county for folks to drop off their thoughts and their thoughts and perspectives. We also have kiosks available at the Tompkins County Library to gather feedback from library patrons and anyone who might not have a computer or internet service at their house. From the forum, or at least, for tonight's forum, we're inviting over 20 community members who have pre-registered to use the raise the hand feature on the Zoom, and we'll keep a running speaker list on the screen. Speakers are invited to speak for 2 minutes. Please also note that this forum is being live streamed on our YouTube channel and will be archived alongside the forums from the city, the county, the sheriff's office, and the IPD. We're only allowing folks to speak once per session, and we appreciate your understanding. The working groups are interested in hearing what you have to think and what you have to say regarding reimagining public safety in Ithaca and Tompkins County. For example, some of you might share your experiences interacting with law enforcement. Some might share your thoughts on how to build trust between police and the public. Others might share how you feel resources should be utilized in maintaining public safety in Tompkins County and Ithaca. I recognize that these are difficult conversations and difficult experiences to share. So first, thank you for showing up tonight and for sharing your perspectives. We're committed to making this a safe space and will not be allowing comments to be directed at other individual or participants.
Great, thank you, Jason. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and it'll have the list of the upcoming speakers. First, we have Jude Forgatch. Jude, I'll click allow to talk.
Is this my time?
Yes.
Okay, I have two referendum voices to the public. I'd like to see anybody who buys a gun, registered weaponry, have a patch permit on their vehicle or on them when they carry the gun in public. Another thing I want to change is the mental health department on post-psych evaluation. They shouldn't plead suicide before hospital admittance. So those are two referendum things. Those are two major things that I thought of. You know, when somebody's postal or needs help for mental health, they shouldn't be drugged through. And also the police department, we should have a separate unit on getting them help, but you don't have to be on your deathbed or plead suicide to receive psychiatric hospitalization. So those were my two things. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Jude. I'd like to invite other folks who are on the Zoom tonight to use the raised hand feature, and I will add you to the queue. All right, we have, let's see. Kate, did you mean to raise your hand? Yes, perfect. All right. Next will be Kate Leboff.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello, yeah, so my name is Ari. I think it's just the link thing again. So I have to say I'm kind of really disappointed in the way I'm seeing all of this reimagining public safety play out. We're listening to the testimonies from a lot of administration in the IPD, and it's really misleading. It's manipulative. It's oftentimes sounds like a ransom. So they're begging for more officers so that they're not stretched so thin, and that's why police brutality happens. But we're seeing, just last night, I saw 4 police officers arresting a homeless man who was just trying to get warm in a little vestibule. And the idea that these officers don't have time to do the things that they say the community needs them to do is absolutely ridiculous. We see people, like all of the officers in the county area, searching for a guy that is like escaped from a nonviolent drug offense. And we see houseless people being arrested. We see protesters being intimidated, and it's absolutely ridiculous. So I ask the mayor and the people listening and the people working on these projects to actively resist these narratives and work towards defunding the police and dismantling the police and taking resources away from these people who are clearly lying and wasting their time. Me and other community members constantly observe them doing random stuff, like standing around, just like bringing so many police officers to these ridiculous calls that are just houseless people like they're investigating crimes that are born out of poverty. And I'm done with this stuff. It's absolutely ridiculous, and you guys need to shape up seriously.
Thank you, Ari. Next, we have Liza. Let's see. All right. Liza, you should be able to unmute.
Unmute. In view of Common Council's recent over-hasty refunding of 2 police positions at taxpayer expense, this public forum feels more than a little disingenuous. Why are we only having this now at the governor's mandate? Community activists have been demanding this every week for months. In spite of years and years of work by organizers in Black Lives Matter movement and legal efforts across the country, policing has not changed because reforms have not worked. Black people continue to be targeted for brutalization. We need to learn how to do things differently and decriminalize, demilitarize, decarcerate. Decriminalize the acts that became crimes when the law and order crowd looked for new ways to oppress Black and brown bodies. Demilitarize the police, who more and more look like representatives of totalitarian regimes with their SWAT vehicle and their oversized Black SUVs here in Ithaca. Decarcerate people who can't pay bail, who have sentences out of proportion to their alleged crimes, who are in prison for nonviolent crimes. These 3 actions will free up funds without decreasing the safety of Ithacans. As many people of color have pointed out before, policing in America, policing in Ithaca is not broken. It's working exactly as it was designed, protecting mostly white, mostly middle class and above, mostly property owning citizens, while regarding vulnerable populations as the enemy. If you would truly like to understand the history, culture, and realities of policing, I can't recommend enough Alex S. Vitale's The End of Policing. It should be required reading for anyone who thinks throwing more money at the police will make anyone safer. I also want to point out the absurdity and cynicism of sending people armed with guns and handcuffs to de-escalate situations involving mental health, domestic violence, and addiction.
Thank you. Next, we have Howard Reed. All right, Howard, you're up.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Howard Reed. I'm a retired mental health center director, and I moved to Ithaca last year because the possibility of alternatives to police response to mental health crisis calls has been raised. I wanted to highlight a very successful example The oldest and most well-known alternative in the US is the CAHOOTS program in Eugene, Oregon. It has been in operation since 1989. And in Eugene, when a 911 call indicates a behavioral health emergency and does not involve a crime or eminently dangerous behavior, they send an EMT and mental health crisis worker to respond rather than police. The CAHOOTS workers do not carry weapons, they do not wear military-style uniforms, and they travel in an SUV without any flashing lights. Their job is to evaluate the situation, provide immediate assistance, and help the individual or family get the follow-up care or service that's needed. CAHOOTS now responds to about 20% of all 911 calls in their area. That's 20% of all 911 calls. That's a striking number. And they have had to request police intervention in less than 1% of calls. In over 30 years of operation, they've never had a serious staff injury, a fact that clearly disproves the notion that all mental health related 911 calls are dangerous and can only be handled by police. The CAHOOTS approach is superior for the person involved experiencing the crisis and any family or friends involved, and it frees up police time to deal with matters for which they are adequately trained. There are a lot of other alternatives in place or under development around the US, including a new model just announced in New York City. But I would urge the collaborative to look at the CAHOOTS model because of the similarities between Eugene and Ithaca. Thank you.
Thank you, Howard. Next, we have Kate, followed by Rochelle. And multiple folks have used the same link, it seems like, to sign up. So if I put your name down as Kate and you're someone else, apologies, just sort of state your name when you join on. So Kate, I'll elevate you.
Hi there.
Hello.
Yeah, so I've noticed on these calls, we get a lot of focus on mental health and police responding to mental health calls. And whenever we have these forums, a lot of the discussion revolves around, you know, defunding and refunding certain programs or creating alternative programs to address things like mental health. But usually it's looped back or called back that this is about reimagining public safety. I don't see how we can have those conversations about reimagining public safety if we don't have the conversations about funding and creating new programs to address the problems and things that actually lead to crime. Once again, as many people have said, police departments respond to crime, they don't prevent it, usually. You know, there's been a lot of talk about affordable housing. Ithaca is probably one of the hardest places to secure affordable housing. I can barely afford affordable housing, and I have a full-time job at Cornell. I know that there's been a lot of initiatives, but just from a Facebook post I made about the Tompkins County Action, where they open housing vouchers, it is anywhere from a 2 to 3 year wait. They often, you know, raise the limit on who can get that housing. You know, we need more mental health programs. Drugs need to be decriminalized and legalized. We need more criminal rehabilitation and support. So, you know, I know this is about quote unquote public safety and reimagining public safety, but you can't reimagine public safety without addressing the root causes of what results in crime or, you know, people doing things quote unquote illegally. So if we don't have those conversations, we can't reimagine public safety. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Kate. And thank you for inviting folks to join us tonight as well and sharing with your networks. I encourage everyone to do that leading up to the other town halls. Next, we have Rochelle.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you now.
Hi, I'm just gonna tag on to the idea of having something of this topic is a farce. This whole idea of public safety, it's never existed. At no point has the public, in any true sense of the word, ever felt safe walking any street in the United States. Black people do not feel safe. They've never been safe. Native people do not feel safe. They've never been safe. Anyone who's considered other in this country do not experience any kind of ideology or practical experience of safety. And therefore, this whole idea of reimagining safety pretty much is reimagining safety for white people who need to be protected from the dregs of humanity that want to go back to their liberal bubble where everything is comfortable and they don't have to see protesters in the streets bothering them and blocking the roads. And they don't have to think about much more than putting up a Black Lives Matter sign in their window and thinking their job is done and then feeling comfortable sleeping. This is a thought process that needs to end completely. We need to imagine what it would be like for someone who was born with the wrong skin color to not ever have to walk his life or her life or their life feeling as if it's a brand that permanently prevents them from living life, imagining or having a baseline of safety. There are people in the world who wake up and walk through the day who don't have to worry about certain things happening to them. And that's something that needs to be the actual condition of everyone extant in this country.
Great. Thank you, Rochelle. We currently don't have anyone else with their hand raised, so we'll wait a few moments. Oh, we have a few now. I'll add your names in one moment. All right. Next, we have Veronica.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. So I'm here today speaking on behalf of Tompkins County Showing Up for Racial Justice, which is a local organization, you're probably aware, organizes white people to show up in appropriate ways and push each other to undermine white supremacy and work for racial justice. And that's, of course, very related to public safety, because part of the ways that structural racism and white supremacy manifests in Ithaca specifically, not differently than the rest of the country, is in lack of safety for Black and brown people in particular. I want to just amplify a few related demands that a coalition we're part of has been put out regarding recent unsafety. For one thing, I don't ever want to lose sight of what happened to Rose and Kaji a year and a half ago on the Commons. We've been calling for reparations for the harm inflicted by the police on them, speaking of people not being safe, for over a year now, and this has not happened. I'd also like to highlight the incident where Officer Vincent Monticello arrested Messiah White Saunders, who was being threatened by a man with a knife, not doing threatening. So this is an incident of racist violence, and later proceeded to misgender a trans woman that they'd also arrested later at the IPD. So some of these things, including the gender-based violence, that's the kind of stuff that we want less of if we want to keep our community safe. And yet we see the police exacerbating it. So I just like people to keep that in mind. Thanks.
Thank you, Veronica. Next, we have Camille.
Hello, I didn't plan to speak, and I don't know how well I'll do because I'm really upset. I don't understand this kind of forum that you have set up at all. We can't see anybody. We don't know who the other people are unless they give their last names. We can't get together and talk to each other. We don't have any opportunity to develop ideas. This is not a forum. This is some kind of pseudo exercise to make it look like the public is participating when no real imagination or development of ideas or exchange of ideas can really happen, where people can see each other face to face and talk about things and interact with the city and the county. I mean, we have one county official here, and then what? This is all going to be put on some kind of text on the computer, and then who's Savanti and maybe one other person might, look through it really quickly and say, oh, well, we know all this, we've heard all this before, and shove it under some, in a dustbin. I signed up to do this last July, and there was a meeting, scheduled for the end of July, and it was canceled. Then there was a meeting scheduled for August 6th, and nothing happened except Savanti talking the whole time. And we were asked to give input, and then all our input was categorized and it was put on the city website. And I think now it's disappeared altogether. This whole process has been redundant and unsatisfying and enraging.
Thank you, Camille, for sharing your input. I'd like to remind folks that some of the reason we're doing this digitally is due to the pandemic, and we're going to continue.
It could be done better.
Understood. Thank you. Next, we have Sarianda. Apologies for mispronouncing your name.
Hi, this is Serinda.
Serinda, great.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, I want to echo the things, just say yes to so many of the other powerful statements others have made, and just reiterate, the policing doesn't actually make us safer, and it was designed, as has already been said, to support racialized capitalism. And as long as we continue policing, we will continue to have violence and deaths that are totally unjust in supporting this system to continue its violence, particularly to people of color and Black people. And we just can't turn our heads away from that. So what I would love to see is a significant defunding and abolishment of the police, and redistribution of funds to education, healthcare, and mutual aid efforts that are already happening and well organized in Ithaca, affordable housing and climate justice efforts in Ithaca, because we have other issues to deal with rather than supporting a bloated budget for people that are historically and currently perpetuating a system that supports racialized violence and racialized capitalism. I also would love to see the SWAT truck turned into a mobile medical unit, clinic, or mobile children's library. I was recently at a Trump rally in front of the police station, and there, which, we all understand that Trump and his people largely have a very supportive view of this racialized capitalist police system. And as one of the police officers was driving out of the police station, I saw him raise his fist in support to this huge crowd. And I just think that it's very important that we check ourselves deeply and who exactly it is we are supporting by paying people to be police.
Great. Thank you, Serinda. I appreciate that. Gideon Casper is next.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. A couple things that I'd like to bring up. One, starting with our Tompkins County Jail, I would love to understand and see if there's a way to make jail inmate phone calls free. There's a county at San Francisco, the mayor just made all county jail phone calls free. We should not be profiting off phone calls for inmates to be calling their loved ones. I know that there are tablets that are now being used at the Tompkins County Jail, and I feel like it's a way to, I'm not sure all the details around that, but it sounds like a way to extort money from people that are in jail that really don't have any money and they're just trying to get in contact with their loved ones. One of the next things I would like to bring up is the use of confidential informants and snitching in Ithaca. And if that's a technique that's being used by our Ithaca Police Force, District Attorney's Office, that is something that needs to be re-examined and looked at, because in my own view, confidential informants are used to, make arrests that really fuel the corruption within our criminal justice system. Instead of police doing their actual investigative work and real police work, they're relying on addicts and junkies, excuse my language, to do the work for them. And that kind of technique, it's been around forever, and I think it needs to be looked at closely in Ithaca. I know that there was some talk around the Deja Organi murder and asking people to cooperate and snitch in that situation. Another thing that I would like to bring up, there was incident some years back with an individual named Jamel Booker who shot at a police officer, and he was murdered in prison by the correctional officers. That's the system that we're in right now.
Thank you, Gideon. If you have additional comments, you can leave them in the chat, and we'll also keep those. Next, we have Susan.
Hello, this is Susan's husband. I go by MS. I want to echo what Veronica and Kamel said earlier. Like Kamel, I would like to understand what the follow-up is for all the comments that are being provided here. And I also want to agree with her that we should be able to see people and have a community talking about this. One question I have for the mayor is regarding the incidents of October 22 that Veronica talked about, which ended with, arresting Jen, and then also a few people who went and protested. I watched the incidents. It appeared to be that that there was no attempt to de-escalate anything. And in fact, the police appeared to approach people who were just chanting, and they were arresting them for what appeared to be no reason. And now I understand they are going to follow through with prosecuting these people. Why are we doing all this? What is the purpose of this? So I think there has to be a conversation for, how the city resources are being spent. And let's not just, get some kids in prison and, go after them for no good reason. Perhaps this is a tactic to silence the Black Lives Protest March, Black Lives Matter marches that are happening. But I think we need to de-escalate. We don't need confrontation, and the mayor needs to understand what the longer process is here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Lisa. And in terms of how these comments will be used, all of these are being archived and provided to the working groups for the city and the county putting together the Reimagining Public Safety Plan. So each of these pieces of input is being transcribed and archived into that the same way that a survey input would be as well. And there'll be ongoing different ways to provide that input throughout the process. Lisa?
Okay. Hi, I only have a short comment. I'm in support of many of the comments that have already happened, and I did fill out the online form for feedback, but I wanted to draw attention specifically to the need for different services to approach issues that are manifested when people are having mental health problems, and that sending the police to deal with mental health issues is, even with training, which I know they've had some, is ineffective and has proven to be dangerous in many circumstances, in many places. And I just want to encourage the working group to keep mental health new policies for responding to mental health crises as a central component in looking at police reform. Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. Next, we have Natalia.
Hello, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Natalia. I'm one of the community outreach workers here in Ithaca, and I do the Commons and the beat of the State Street, Green Street. And my job is to look out for anybody who happens to be in distress, to respond to mental health crises and de-escalate, to be a supportive person in the community who can connect people to resources. I think that this is really valuable and that we need more people with this kind of job. I think that we need more people of color with this kind of job and people that represent marginalized communities. There's a few things in Ithaca that I think we really need to obtain as soon as possible. Number one is a safe injection site. We have an opioid crisis in Ithaca. We need a safe place for people to be able to inject drugs so that they're not overdosing and dying outside, on the streets, etc. That is very important for the safety of our people. It will reduce viruses like hepatitis C and HIV. And when people utilize a safe consumption site, they can also connect to supports, resources, etc. It's just a great idea, and we need one. We needed one yesterday. So we need that. We need affordable housing, which is something many people have brought up, and it's a real need. It's expensive to live here, and it's causing poorer and marginalized people to be shoved and gentrified out of the city of Ithaca. And last and most importantly, we need some sort of substance tolerant shelter. Many people who are in the throes of addiction or who aren't ready to quit using drugs still need housing, and that is a huge barrier to them getting shelter. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. We don't have anyone else with their hand raised at the moment, but we'll stay online for a bit if folks would like to raise their hand. All right. Next we have Chris, you're up next.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I have asked two questions on the chat, but they have not been addressed. The first question is, how does the Center for Equity in Policing fit into this whole procedure? That's the end of the question. I'll hold that and hear your response.
Thank you, Chris. I will read that response to you. We put it in the chat instead of the Q&A. Apologies for that. The Center for Policing Equity works with different departments in cities and counties around the U.S. on data-driven interventions for policing, and they're serving as an advisor and project management role to this process, bringing the city and county together in collaboration. And they're also supporting the development of our report. And like I said, they specialize in data-driven interventions. I'd recommend checking out their website. I'll have Deanna post that in the chat for you in here and on our YouTube channel as well for folks who are tuning in there.
Okay, can I come back still?
Yes, of course.
Okay, all right, I'm aware of that. I've read the background material. I read the mayor's speech on it. There was supposed to be someone who was coordinating and would be the contact. That did not happen. And the next question is, what happened to those of us who had signed up with the mayor's group and were welcomed and were asked to make our comments on the snap of fingers? Where do we fit into these committees? Over or back to you?
Chris, most of those answers for now, if you'd like to share in chat, we can follow up specifically on that, the Community Voices Public Forum here, and some of those other input ways are what we've done so far. And we're planning some focus groups and other things coming out over the next month or so. We'd like to thank everyone for their patience with this process as we've moved forward, merging it into a collaboration with the city and the county.
Well, but that doesn't answer the question. What role do those of us who volunteer come to be?
Yeah, so Chris, that depends. It depends, one, on, as you might know, over 100 people signed up to volunteer. Some of those folks just wanted to contribute one time, write their suggestions, and have it be done. Other folks wanted to serve long-term in a committee or working group. Once we merged, you might remember that the city started out on a process on its own. The county stepped up and said, look, we'd really like to work together, which is wonderful. Merging that process is also complicated things in ways that are ultimately very useful and beneficial, and led us to create really 3 different main ways for folks to contribute. One is through these Community Voices public forums. Another is through the working groups. Those are working groups that are set up around particular interest areas. And then the third are focus groups. What's the difference between a focus group and a working group? Well, the working groups, as the name implies, are going to do more hands-on work. Those folks were chosen based on either their technical skills, their backgrounds, their experiences, either around communications or law enforcement, reform, et cetera. And the focus groups are about getting people's lived experiences. Right? So we're asking people who have had particular experiences, people of color, Black people, folks who are in recovery, people who've used drugs in the past, et cetera, to add to the process through those focus groups. So, and then of course there are the surveys. So there are several different, there's no one place for people to contribute what they have to add to this process. There are several places to contribute. If you just have one idea that you really want to make sure gets included, you can put it in the survey, you can present it at these public forums. If you really want to serve on one of the working groups, you could shoot us an email, let us know why that is you want to serve on the working group. And then of course the focus groups work the same way. If you have a lived experience that you think would be useful to the reimagination process, that's where you can contribute.
Okay, so where can we read the list of working groups and the contact people for those working groups?
We'll plug that into the chat for you, Chris. We have that published on a one-page document that sort of overviews this process. I'll have Deanna post that in the chat. Thanks.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, Mayor, from your response, I know that you have not, and Annie has not talked with you about my letter to you specifically on all of this. So I'm a little miffed. This has been going on for 2 months and nothing's happened. Not even a response, hey, I'm out to lunch, I can't respond now.
Yeah, I haven't been out to lunch in quite a while. Apologies, Chris. I'll speak to Annie, find your letter, and follow up with you.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Next, we have David Foote. Are you there, David?
Is my microphone working now? Okay.
Yes.
Hello. So I wanted to reiterate that for most of this year, the people of Ithaca, in and around Ithaca, have been demanding that police department budget be cut significantly and that those funds be used for community-based programs. Of course, we know this isn't a small thing. It takes a lot of work to change systems, especially while we have multiple crises that each and all together are making this change more difficult. But they also make it more necessary. This work has to happen. The way that policing occurs can't be fixed. Reforms like body cameras and bias training, these haven't deterred police violence or wrongful arrests. They've tried and they've failed. Second, putting aside issues of justice and over-policing, it's just a dysfunctional system. Data shows that police aren't effective at preventing this thing we call crime. And when we do see things like theft or property destruction or interpersonal violence, police also aren't effective at resolving it. Statistics show that investigations are successful maybe a quarter of the time if an investigation happens at all. Given all this, we do need to radically reimagine public safety. We need our officials to work with us to do this. I think in Ithaca, we like to think of ourselves as being very progressive and peaceful and an example of how a community should be under the best circumstances. But we've fallen behind. As others pointed out during this meeting, other cities are actively responding to demands of their communities and making deep changes. At this point, we need to catch up. We need to hold police accountable and institute changes that effectively protect our people. And we need representatives that are willing to share our imagination and have the willpower to listen to us and make these changes. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Are there any other folks who would like to speak this evening? Next, we have Nancy Braun.
Hi, my name is Nancy Braun. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. And I just wanted to just thank everyone who's spoken tonight. I really appreciate all the wide range of ideas and comments, and I agree with many of them. I wanted to just throw in that I would hope, I'm a school teacher. I teach kindergarten at Beverly J. Martin Elementary. I would hope that as part of this reimagining, that you would reach out to adolescents in Tompkins County. I know that at Ithaca High School, all seniors take participation in government. I think this would be a fabulous experience for them, as well as for the informing this group or this process, particularly students who are of a demographic that might have been negatively impacted by the way policing has happened, and use that in the spirit of can we grow our own public safety organization truly from the ground up, truly as a part of our community. I don't know what the data is if you looked at the makeup of our police force and you know how many members of our police force grew up in Ithaca or in Tompkins County, and what demographics they represent. But that would be my suggestion: is start with our own community. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Are there any other folks who'd like to speak this evening? And as a reminder as well, we'll be hosting another one of these tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. And thank you to those of you who've shared the links with your networks to get folks signed up for the upcoming sessions as well. All right, we'll give it a minute or two more. I see Megan, you are up. Megan, you should be able to speak. All right, Megan, if we're unable to hear you, just share in the chat what question you might have. Otherwise, I'll keep you on the list in case it works. We'll give it about 1 more minute or so. Again, if anyone would like to speak this evening, please use the raise hand feature here on Zoom. All right. Mayor Myrick, I'll stop sharing my screen and we'll close for the evening. Thank you to everybody who has spoken tonight and shared your voice. As we've mentioned, we'll be sharing them with the working groups putting together the Reimagining Public Safety Plan. Mayor Myrick?
Yeah, thank you. So that's where this goes. I mean, we obviously, you know, Jason and I are here. I know several of the common council members and county legislators are also here watching, observing the forum, taking notes, and trying to figure out, you know, I know everybody who lives here knows that consensus is impossible, but consensus isn't our goal. You know, we're trying to figure out the best ideas, the best wisdom, the best input from both the expertise, but also the lived experience of the people of Ithaca as we try to reimagine public safety from the ground up. So this is an important part of it, but it's not the whole part. So tomorrow, first of all, tomorrow morning, 10:30, I think, Don, we're have another forum. Yeah. So if you have more ideas, more experiences that you want to share, or folks that you'd like to share the link with, please do join us again tomorrow morning. We'll be doing a couple other sessions as well in December. But then there are other future sessions. So different sessions like focus groups and of course the working groups. The one question in the chat Deanna pushed up to me is about the incident of October 22nd, where Deputy Chief Monticello initiated an arrest. Now, we've asked for a complete investigation because, of course, the videos that are circulating online don't show the entire incident. They don't show what happened before. They don't show what happened after. So we're pulling all the footage we can and interviewing witnesses. There's a community police board investigation that's ongoing. That's independent community members who live in the city of Ithaca who complete those reviews and investigations and make recommendations to me. But I've also reached out to the Division of Human Rights in the New York State Attorney General's office. We've asked them to pick it up. They were quite busy before the election, but told us that they'd look into us and let us know if they will be doing a full and complete investigation. We hope they will. We think it'll be useful. So yeah, so I'll see you again. Thank you for being here. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 10:30. Or if you won't be here because you've said your piece, please do share the link so we can get as many voices involved in this process as possible. Did I miss anything, Don, Deanna?